Antibiotic resistance, this is not a new phenomenon. When the inventor of the antibiotic, Fleming and his team, when they discovered the antibiotic, at that time also Fleming opened that this resistance to microbes may come in future. Now it is said that might have come because of misuse of the antibiotics, but during the era when antibiotics were not being used, some organisms have been isolated, and it has been found that some of those organisms were also resistant to the antibiotics being presently used. Besides use of the antibiotics or misuse of the antibiotics, which is usually said nowadays, even when antibiotics were not being used, antibiotic resistance or bacteria were having the mechanism to invade the antibiotics, which have been used in clinical medicine later on. But whatever the reasons might be, whether it is misuse or whether it is environmental pressure or something else, this is true that we have to use the antibiotics judiciously to save our future generations. There is a national policy on use of antibiotics, but how much this policy is being implemented at field level, and whether antibiotics are being used only on the prescription of the authorized doctors, competent professionals, or these are being used by paramedicos or paravets without thinking the actual result of the antibiotics, and even self-medication for human as well as for animals. Sometimes farm owners, they also give the routinely used antibiotics without the prescription of any doctor or veterinary doctor. Whenever this came to the mind of the pupil during the clinical studies that organisms are getting resistant to the antibiotics used in the field, different isolated studies have been initiated by different institutes, different projects have been taken, but all these projects are in isolation. Rather, I can say that there is a disconnect between the policy and whatever studies are being conducted in the institutes. We need more authenticated, more cohesive network programs which need to be implemented with some outcome, proper outcome, which can help to modify or remodify the guidelines for use of the antibiotics in animals as well as in human beings. Whatever studies are being conducted, every day we are finding that resistance is not only in the bacteria, it is coming in viruses, it is coming in even fungus, it has been reported. But all these studies have, till now have been in isolation. So we have to compile all the results of those studies, we have to make a big program, and we have to make this network program, we have to implement in different institutes with different definite objectives. Not like that someone has isolated the organism, he has found that this organism is resistant to this antibiotic and has published the paper, and it is not being properly used by the clinicians, or at mass level it is not being used. In case of large animals, usually prophylactic measures, usually it is not much as it is said that huge quantity of antibiotics used for prophylactic purpose. Particularly I want to tell it in Indian context, but in case of poultry or in case of pigs, sometimes these antibiotics are also used for this in feed as prophylactic measures. So that also need to be regulated, that what antibiotic should be used there, whether this antibiotic is being used for therapeutic and in some of the advanced countries whatever antibiotic is being used for therapeutic usage, these are not being used as growth promoters. So that we have to bring in developing countries like ours in practical mode, at ground it should be there that these antibiotics are being used only for therapeutic reason, therapeutic purpose. That's why these antibiotics should not be used as prophylactic or as a feed additive or like that. more research is required, that is true. Comprehensive approach is required so that we can know the exact quantity of the antibiotics, what is being produced in the country, what different MNCs are producing in the country, how these are being channelized, and up to what extent these are being used in the country, so that we can know the exact quantity of different antibiotics which are being used. These should be authenticated. Actually, all these hypotheses need to be authenticated, backed up with research data.